Hey there, this is Phil Collen from Def Leppard. I'm with Premier Guitar and you're listening to The Big Five. Usually I really struggle with this, but my favourite one at the moment, and it does change, is a Jackson PC Supreme. It's this red, I'm not playing it on tour at the moment, it's at home, but it's the fattest neck Jackson or Fender have ever made for anyone. They've done it as a joke for me, because I'm always going, can you make the neck a bit fatter on the next one? So this one, a few years ago, they said, oh yeah, and they were kind of joking, and it has something that's magical about it. It's insane. I've got a DiMarzio X2N on it. It's got a Floyd with FU tone titanium part, so it's got that. It's a neck throw, so it really is this massive chunk of wood. It's a maple neck, maple top, mahogany body, pretty heavy. Stays in tune. I can like dig in. I'm fairly violent, aggressive play. I play with a brass pick and I use 13 to 54 gauge string, so I can really dig in. And but it sounds ridiculous, and then when other people play it, they go, oh wow, this is actually playable. And the great thing about it, it kind of makes me play even more aggressively. So, which is, if you're a rock player, that's kind of what you want. That's what I want anyway. I know some people play light, and that's just not my thing. It's more digging in. So this guitar really does that for me. I mean, I have just so many favorite guitars, and I go through phases of them, but this one, I keep coming back to this one. This is kind of like my favorite one. Every guitar is different. Some just ring. I've picked up guitars that really cheap guitars, and they just have a thing about them. There's almost without getting too weird about it, a soul to them. And some of it's being set up, some of it's the wood. You know, as we all know, it's like as the moisture leaves the wood body, they kind of sound sweeter. You know, that's what the whole baking the wood process is all about. And so, with all that said, it's a try by try thing. You know, like me and Steve Clark bought two Les Pauls that were identical, a digit off, and they were so drastically different to play and sound for whatever reasons. And so it's that, and I think that's the magic of the guitar. It's just a wonderful instrument, and it's very personal. What, you know, one man's poison is another man's meat, or whatever. You know, it's that kind of thing. But I've used DiMarzio since I was 17 years old, when they first came out in England, and you know, I remember seeing Al Di Meola, Ace Frehley. There's a list. I mean, everyone was using the New York Dolls, Johnny Thunders, just a really vast array. And you say Johnny Thunders and Al Di Meola, it's like such a wild thing. But they were both using them. I just drastically wanted one. When I got one, I put them on pretty much every guitar. And I to this day, I have DiMarzios on everything. I love them. I kind of, you know, don't really like other pickups so much, you know. So it's an eternal quest, and you just little tweaks as you go on, like the titanium stuff, the baked wood, all of these little things really add to a guitar. But yeah, my latest thing is the X2N. I've bumped a bunch of my guitars up to that. Oh, my Desert Island album is Aladdin Sane by David Bowie. It came out when I was so impressionable. I started playing guitar at age 16 after seeing Deep Purple on the Machine Head tour. So that's Richie Black. I was front row. I actually got to touch Richie Blackmore's hand, and he was smashing this Strat up and playing it, and playing this crazy stuff, you know, different notes that, you know, like harmonic minor scales and just stuff that I'd never even heard of before. And I didn't even know what a guitar was. So that was so impressionable. And the 2 years I pestered my mum and dad for a guitar, I saw David Bowie on Top of the Pops, this British TV show. And, you know, Mick Ronson was the guitar player. He was playing a Les Paul. And that changed my life as well. So you had this, you know, I wanted to be Richie Blackmore, but all of a sudden, David Bowie was writing songs directly to a 14-year-old. You know, everyone wants to, you know, get an identity. We're still seeing it now. Everyone craves an identity, and especially when you're impressionable. You're 12 to 14, up to this, you know, some people never quite get it. They're in search of their identity. That to me really spoke to me. And it was, yeah, I knew I wanted to play guitar. I knew this image. There was something, he was portraying something else. And it was artistic expression. You know, he was using, you know, mime and, you know, theater and all of this stuff. And it was glam rock. And it was like, wow. So that in the combination of Richie Blackmore smashing a Strat off and playing like kind of virtuoso rock playing, that done the deal. So when I turned 16, you know, I got my first guitar. But those years, I remember seeing the Aladdin Sane tour. Me and my friend went to see them. My mum and dad took me in Earl's Court, and it was just mind blowing. My biggest guitar culture pet peeve is actually more of a music and culture in general pet peeve, that people assume that, I'll give you a great one. They assume that you're all in to a certain part of the culture, you're attached to it in every single way. People have an impression that you have a certain approach to like guitar playing, you hang out in all the forums, and I am a geek. I'm a guitar geek. I do love that stuff. I'll give you a great example. You know, on the G3 tour, I was honored to get to play next to Joe Satriani and John Petrucci every single night, and you know, mind blowing. And I would get so much out. I'd learn so much, and you know, watching John would play something, and it's like compliment it. Obviously you can't try and overdo that, because that's crazy. So you compliment it, and then Joe would compliment it. After each show, we would talk in a stairwell like guitar geekdom, and just for at least half an hour, and people go, okay, we got to go now, and it's February outside and it's snowing and you're going to catch pneumonia, which we did. And it was so wonderful. But I'm not, and we're not that all the time. It's usually there's a moment that happens, and that was an inspired moment that we got to really geek out, and it was like, wow, saw Jimi Hendrix, and we sounded like three little kids, and you know, these are monsters of the guitar, musicians and everything. But it was just a wonderful moment every single night that we would talk and take stock of the show that we just did and stuff in the past, and all guitar geek stuff. But I really loved that moment, but it's not all the time. And I think that people assume that you're on all the time. You do that all the time, and that's not the case. You know, I usually stroll around cities. Like I say, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina at the moment. There's this beautiful park. Grab my coffee, and I just sit here, and I have so many different things going on during the day that it's not all eat, breathe, guitar. And I think because of that, when you do focus on the guitar, it becomes a little more extreme. Even it's even more concentrated because you do other things. You know, I've gotten into over COVID. I've got into, actually before that, writing these short stories. Like they're almost like Stephen King-esque. I have no idea where that comes from, but I'm doing that. One's being turned into a graphic novel, which is like, whoa, this is great. And so I think that's really important. It's really important to be into other things without sounding name droppy, because you know, I've got to meet and play with I've been on stage with Richie Blackmore, Jeff Beck, and got to have discussions with Jimmy Page and Brian May, and it's just wonderful. And it's just, and all of them have the same thing, you know, the reason that they can put so much into it, because they have such great life experience outside of the guitar. And in fact, the guitar is just a conduit. My guitar hero that may shock fans, I love Kurt Cobain's guitar playing. I love when, like, you know, In Bloom, the solo on it, it's just awesome. And it's a feel. And I think a lot of people go, Johnny Thunders. I mean, that's well, we always reference Johnny Thunders from you know, the New York Dolls. And he's playing, he used to do this Chuck Berry riff, but he would do it in such a fashion that it was just great. And to this day, actually, even on their latest album, I said to Joe, I said, I'll do the thing. It's like Johnny Thunders at the end. He said, it's great. And we're always referencing Johnny Thunders and Steve Jones at the Sex Pistols, who I still think has one of the, I've seen two guitar players in my life where I've gone, that is the best sound I've ever heard live. One of them was Steve Jones in a club, like at the Roxy Club in LA, which is like, well, how can it sound that good? He was borrowing an amp off of Billy Duffy, wasn't he? It was a Les Paul knockoff, and it's obviously him. And it was Steve Jones, and it sounded the power and the vibe of what you hear on Nevermind the Bollocks, the Sex Pistols album. So Steve Jones is a guitar hero. Your Johnny Thunders is Kurt Cobain. They're all kind of in that kind of vein of being punk, and it's just a purest expression. When someone starts as a very basic player and they still have this vibe or this spirit that comes out and just grabs you straight away, that's a really special thing. My secret weapon, without sounding blasé or anything, I love my vibrato. You know, I do all this shredding stuff now and again, and you have to be melodic. You have to keep, you can ruin a song by doing the wrong solo. So when you listen to a song, you listen to the vocal, the lead vocal, the rhythm, the groove, and then you have to interpret something that goes in there when you're playing a solo. So it complements and it even enhances that thing. So for me personally, it's the vibrato thing. And, you know, obviously I'd learned it from, you know, Mick Ronson, you know, Jeff Beck. Some of that vibrato was just amazing. And that comes out. I still hear that. I hear my elders or my guitar gods. I hear that coming out. You know, Brian May's vibrato, great. You know, just the control on it. And I do that. And so that's my secret weapon, because it's like, if you ever get stuck, you can play one note and just make it count. I have a sustainer on my PC1s and on my Jackson PC1s and that, the Supremes, and I can obviously hold a note. It can break into feedback, or you don't have to do that. And it really means you have your vibrato. You have to be very consistent, and you have to be confident. I hear a lot of players when they get to the vibrato, it's timid, and it says, and again, without getting too philosophical, it says something about ego. It says something about what they're trying to do up there. But I think when you've got confidence in your vibrato, and it can sing, and it can enhance, and it can go in and be part of the spirit of the song and the band that you're playing with, it's a beautiful thing. So that's something I kind of, I don't even try to do that. It's just something that comes out. I find that works in just a beautiful context. It's more than just music. It's actually a personality. You're creating a personality. Again, it's back to that identity where you we're all trying to find an identity. And I think that when you realize it, it's a beautiful thing. And that's what I say every single night, this vibrato thing. That's the stuff that gives me goosebumps.